Hello, this is Mr. Kabilski, and I want to go through a short informational update for Unit 4 of the Most Missed Questions for the unit test 410. Sorry about that. The first thing we want to do is we want to look at some definitions. Dominant trait, a trait that is expressed even if one or copy of an allele is present. So if there's only one large T, which is the indication for a dominant, okay, that dominant trait will be shown. Recessive, for a recessive trait, it's only expressed if two of those identical alleles are present. So they have to have two of the lowercase alleles. Homozygous, they are two identical alleles, but they can be the dominant or the recessive alleles, but they're the same allele for that trait. And heterozygous means they're going to be different traits. Different alleles for the trait. So it's going to be a dominant and a recessive. So for the heterozygous, since there is a dominant, that characteristic for the dominant trait will be shown. So here's our question. Which term describes the type of trait that is usually expressed when only one of the organism has two identical alleles for that trait? So we're looking for an organism that has two identical alleles. So you can look and say, okay, if it has two identical alleles, it could be dominant or recessive. But if it has two dominant or one dominant, that trait is going to be expressed. So if it has only the two recessive, that's the only time it's going to be shown. So if you look at what it is, recessive trait, the trait expressed only if two identical alleles are present, that is the answer for this. Now, for 203, 35% of you got it right, which is not very good. You were a little bit confused, and for 204, it was a little bit better, 57, but you're still confused. So let's look at the next one. Okay, here we go. Horticulturalist wants to produce geraniums with a specific characteristic. She knows that the trait of a red flower is governed by the uppercase R dominant allele, RR, or R lower r. The trait for white flower is governed by the recessive lowercase r. Now you'll see instead of geraniums we have fruit flies. Here's the question. The horticulturist plans to cross a geranium that is true breeding for red flowers with a geranium that is true breeding for white flowers. Which Punnett square best describes the cross? So here we have are the fruit flies. Now again, they're just representation of what's going on. So you're going to need to identify where those go. First of all, what is true breeding? True breeding means they are homozygous, that they are going to only have one allele. So true breeding for red is going to be the upper R. True breeding for white, obviously, since it's recessive, is going to be the lowercase r. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to put those characteristics in these areas. So this would be true for red. This would be true for white. This is how we generate our Punnett square. So what are the offspring? Well, the offspring all get one gene from each parent. So they are all uppercase, lowercase. So they are all, in this situation, they are heterozygous for red. Okay, so what do we get? Well, in this situation, we got a little bit better. 58 of the 203 answered correctly. 88 of the 204 answered correctly. So which answer is correct? A, which is given here, B, given here, or C, given here? Well, again, if they're all true breeding, we know that what? They're going to only have one allele that's going to be the same, so it is going to be C. C is going to be the correct answer. And I am just ripping through here. Okay, this was a chromosome working its way all the way down to the double helix of the DNA. So we looked at, again, some different terms, and we looked at genes. Genes are a segment of DNA, and they determine how characteristics are passed on to the offspring. So here is our structural DNA, and a gene is a segment of that DNA. So let's look at what do we have. Here's the next question. Which of the following is the best physical description of a gene? The best. Okay. Genes carry many chromosomes. A. B. A gene consists of all of the DNA chromosome. C. A chromosome is a segment of DNA of a gene. Or a gene is a specific segment of DNA on a chromosome. Okay, well, what did we just say it was? We just said a gene is a segment of DNA. So it would be D. A gene is a specific segment of DNA on a chromosome. Now you notice C is actually flipped. A chromosome is a segment of a gene. So you have to pay attention, you have to know your terms, and you have to trust what you've learned. So let's look at the next one. We got a couple of more here. This is the blood typing, and we've gone over this on one of the labs. Jessica's mother has a blood type of AB, and her father has a blood type of O. Which blood type could Jessica have? Draw a Punnett square. Here we have it. Here's the mother. I pulled out this information, AB. So they have the allele IA, IB. Father is OO, II for recessive. So what do we do next? Well, we've got to figure out what possible combinations could yield this. Now here is the father's match side, here's the mother's. So what are the possible combinations that she could have? Well, she could have AO or she could have BO. Okay, so those are what we're looking for. But the answers that they give you are what? Which blood type could Jessica have? So they're listing A, B, and O. Well, wait a second. She could have A or B. So many of you actually, when you did this, you wrote AB. That's not correct. She cannot have AB because the father does not have an A or a B. So she can only have A or B. B is not listed. So what is the only answer that is possible? What could Jessica have? She could have B. Okay, that's the only possible answer. Again, not tricky. It can be confusing, so you want to read through and take your steps one at a time. And here, 58% of 203 got it right. 78 of 204 got it right. Now again, more of the 204. It could be 204 is taking their time reading the questions, or they could be less confused. So let's finish up here. Okay, multiple alleles on the same chromosome. Remember, we're looking at crossing over. Okay, genes can be exchanged between homologous chromosomes only during meiosis 1. Okay, now a couple of things we know about meiosis. Meiosis leads to gametes. So this is where the genetic material will be passed on to the offspring. That's why it's important. Okay, so what else? Chromosomes that underwent crossing over are called recombinant chromosomes, and they contain a region of a brand new combination. And here we have our brand new combination. Here we have our homologous chromosomes. Crossing over occurs in an area where they can intertwine, break off, and have a new combination. Okay, so let's see what we got. Okay, crossing over, why? And this was from the test. Discuss how crossing over leads to greater variability of phenotypes. Give an example to help explain your answer. So how does crossing over lead to greater variability of phenotypes? Well, what did we look at? We talked about crossing over is a process which homologous chromosomes exchange a piece of DNA. Chromosomes may carry genes. Again, part of our definition from previous. Genes that travel together on the chromosome are said to be linked. Not sex-linked, but linked, because they are inherited as a unit. Okay. Crossing over unlinks those genes by swapping one allele for another. Okay. They swapped the allele. And then they asked you, give an example. Assume a fruit fly can inherit a chromosome which is red-eyed normal wings, and they are linked, or brown-eyed and wrinkled wings which are linked. All offspring will have either of those two combinations, red-eye normal or brown-eye wrinkled. Okay, so those are our examples, but we got to go further. Crossing over permits the swapping of alleles, which will produce new combinations of alleles on the homologous chromosome. These are brand new alleles. So an allele for a red-linked allele for wrinkled wings now is possible, and an allele for a brown-eyed normal-winged individual is possible. These recombinant chromosomes can lead to new offspring phenotypes, and that's what we just said. And for that one, 73% of the 203 got it correct, and 86 of the 204, so a little bit better percentage. I will produce another video that'll be about 10 minutes long as well for Unit 5, which we just finished. Check your recording area and also the announcements for that. This is Mr. Kabilski signing off for this little help session.